Hello and welcome to FeckTV.com. I'm Noel Byrne. Joining me is Alan Noonan. We are joined on the line by none other than Danny Healy Rae, who has found himself at the centre of a drink driving permit controversy that has hit headlines both here in Ireland and indeed around the world as well. Firstly, Danny, thanks a million for joining us today.
Good night, evening to you and all your listeners.
I suppose, Danny, I'll try not to be like drama queen Darcy and hang up on you anyway. I suppose.
Well, I'd be grateful for that.
We'll try our best. I suppose the first question, Danny, is, do you honestly think now that the Department of Justice and Minister Alan Shatter are going to allow these permits to be, to be given out and to go ahead?
Well, as I proposed this motion, I put it before Kerry County Council, and it was passed by Kerry County Council. And I put the motion forward on behalf of many, many people and many, many requests. I'm asking the Minister to give it serious consideration. And if he, doesn't see that all of what I'm saying is correct, I'm asking him to come up with a better plan, because I have to come up with another plan, because something needs to be done to help people who are rurally isolated, living in very remote areas, and have no social outlet, and who actually have taken to drinking vast amounts of alcohol in their homes, and some of them fall into depression, and indeed, sadly, a few have committed suicide in their late 60s and early 70s because they felt that they had nothing to live for, and that society had nothing to offer them, and they thought that they had nothing to offer society because they're practically cooped up in their homes, or had been cooped up in their homes, and nowhere, couldn't go anywhere, meet anyone, or had no contact with people, very, very little anywhere. And as they thought their lives, that life had much more to offer them.
So, Danny, you raised a very interesting point there now, I must say. And firstly, let me commend you on the political coup that you did firstly. It is after garnering headlines across the world. But secondly, let me say, I think you've addressed a very interesting and important point that an awful lot of people have ignored, which is this rural isolation that an awful lot of people suffer from in the countryside. I think that a lot of people who are up in Dublin have managed to ignore the rest of the country for an awful lot of time. But with regards you talking about there being a better proposal, this would be my one criticism of you. Do you not think that it would have been insensitive, that this idea of saying that there'll be a drink driving permit is insensitive towards those who've lost family members or friends in drink driving accidents?
And I have to say, I'm very sorry for anyone that loses a family member. You might know, but I attend an awful lot of funerals. I've seen the anguish of parents and family members when they lose a young family member, and I feel very much for those people, and I understand very much what it is like to lose a family member. But you see, they're not comparing like with like. The roads that I'm talking about, the people that I'm talking about, and the permit that I'm asking for, there has never been an accident. You're talking about much smaller roads, cul-de-sac roads that finish up in a dead end. You can't do more than 25 or 30 miles an hour. 30 would be the very most. Third gear, second or third gear in many parts of these roads. And I'm not, they're talking about, massive motorways, massive amount of traffic where the traffic is bumper to bumper, and there's no let up, it never stops. And then you see many of the accidents that we hear about, the fatal accidents, and there's one of them being highlighted there. It happened above around Cork Airport or somewhere, and a mother lost her son. But it turns out that the driver had 7 pints of something, he had 5 bottles of something more, and he had double vodkas, 2 or 3 of them, and Red Bulls, and a line of cocaine. Well, that's not what I'm proposing. I'm proposing just 2 or 3 drinks, 2 or 3 pints the very most, and for and on only very minor roads, not on national roads or motor where the maximum speed limit applies. I'm not talking about them type of roads. I'm just talking about the roads, very, very minor, small roads. A different story altogether.
Danny, can I ask you, you mentioned that if Minister Shatter doesn't accept this drink driving permit suggestion, which in fairness seems likely, you want him to put forward other alternatives. Would a more obvious alternative coming from Kerry County Council not have been, maybe that pub drivers could drop them home, or some sort of designated driver group where maybe a different person would drop the group of people home who want to go to the pub?
First of all, I suppose, yes, I have addressed this issue in the last 2 days many times. You see, many publicans do take people home, and in many places, but you see, it won't work everywhere. And much of the places that I'm talking about, it won't work at all. Because you have one road going up into a dead end, and you pick up one or two fellas there. There's 6 or 7 roads like that in every parish. And you have to come down. There's no, because these roads are railed in by mountains and valleys, and you can't cross to the other road, which may be very near on the other side of the hill. You have to come down back into the village again and go up the other road. And if you do that 6 or 7 times, the pub will be closed before it will be done with the last couple of fellas. And then to take them home, the different roads, to be a long, long time after closing them, and it just doesn't work. And these fellas want a little bit of independence, and for the couple of pints they drink, they don't want the neighbours to be thinking that, a bus had to bring him home or a taxi to bring him home. And you see, they can get taxis from time to time, but it won't work. It won't work on a regular basis.
I suppose one obvious question would be, you're kind of saying that people want to go to the pub, socialise and not be isolated at home. But at the same time, why can't these people go to the pub, have the chat and meet up with their friends or other people in the parish and not drink? Why do they have to have alcohol? Can they not just drink a bottle of Coke or a bottle of Club Orange?
Well, you'll have to ask them that question, because that's not what they want, or that's not what they have ever done. And up until the last set of regulations, they came and had their 2 or 3 points, and that's all they ever wanted. And they feel that their social life has been taken away from them. And these fellas wouldn't break the law, and that's why they're staying at home, and that's why they're isolated in their homes. They wouldn't go out and break the law now, because they know they would be. And it's sad to think, that if you drive a Jeep, a small tractor, or a van, they're deemed to be commercial, and they're treated with the same law, 20 milligrams, as a professional driver driving an articulated truck or a coach on a heavy traffic motorways. They're treated the very same, and it's just not right, or it's just not fair.
Danny, what would be your response to people who say that they look at the road fatality statistics, and in 2006 there were 358 people who died on the roads. 2012 had only 168 people die on the roads. And people would point to the fact that the lowering of the alcohol limits would have contributed to the decrease in the road fatalities. What would you say to that?
I would agree with them with that. But you see, the fatalities that they're talking about happened on high-speed roads where there's massive traffic, and certainly the lowering of the limits. And
but are you telling me that people don't speed on country roads?
Not, you can't. You don't understand until you see the roads that I'm talking about.
I don't know if that's that fair of a statement, Danny, because I come from Mayo, in a rural part of it as well, and I am aware of road deaths that have occurred on rural country roads that I'd imagine are quite similar to the ones in Kerry.
Well, you see, you may be talking about regional roads between towns, and you would be right there, between towns and villages maybe, but I'm talking going off into the country, into a valley alone, valley 6 or 7 miles, where you won't meet any traffic. You will meet no other traffic, and that's the truth about it. And there was a man around here today from the News of the World, and he went up and down some of the roads. Sadly, I wasn't able to be with him, because I would have taken him around many more of them. But he said he didn't meet any traffic. But I agree with you, maybe between towns and villages, there is an awful lot of traffic in every part of the country, but not up these rural roads that I'm talking about. And these are the people that are rurally isolated. And you see, I'm not looking for this, we'll say, permit for people between towns and villages or between villages, because you will have traffic passing there and they could get leaks or whatever. I'm not looking for a permit for those kind of situations. Rather, I am for rurally isolated people who are very lonely and contact they don't have with anybody anymore, and they feel that life is over for them, and many of them are sadly taking to drinking large amounts of alcohol at home, falling into depression, and some of them have committed suicide.
I know over the past couple of days, Danny, I mean, you've been in pretty much all the newspapers around the country and on various stations in Ireland and around the world. You did say that a retired Garda contacted you and said he backs the proposal. And we've obviously seen the councillor in Galway as well showing his support for the idea. Do you think it's a case of there are other TDs and councillors around the country who actually, you know, agree with you, but they wouldn't say it in public?
Well, that could be well the case, and I believe it is the case, because in Kerry County Council, when I got the motion passed, 7 people that were present abstained. That means they didn't vote against me. They must have seen merit in what I was proposing, and they understand, of course, that there is a significant problem and that is rural isolation. Maybe they were concerned as to how it could be made to work. And maybe to see that I didn't get time enough during the motion to explain well enough as to how it would work. But, you know, I believe it can be made work. And you see, one of the people who stood up against my motion was a lady, very nice person, Gillian Slattery Watton. She has 2 names. She's from Town, and she thought what I was saying was that people were committing suicide at home because, you know, of the law, because they couldn't get a couple of drinks, and that's not what I was saying. And she interpreted wrongly what I was saying. Rather, what I was saying was they were falling into depression and committing suicide because they were having too much drink at home, unregulated drinking.
I think people. Sorry, Danny. I think people have misrepresented you on that point. Yeah.
And the people that that are against any move in this direction, that's what they're trying to say, and they're wrong in that. That's not what I said, or that's not what I meant.
Can I ask?
And I didn't get.
Sorry, Danny, can I ask you for a bit of clarification on your the 7 people who were on the county council? Were they informed that this proposal would be brought to a vote? Were they informed beforehand about it? No. The whole
make-up of the council, the 7 members, were aware of my motion since whenever they got the agenda in the middle of last week, somewhere Tuesday or Wednesday, we get the agenda. And my motion would have been on the agenda well in advance of the meeting, so they knew the motion was there. And with any motion, the likelihood always is, and that's why I go into the media, I'm first in there, and I'm the last out, because anything can happen if you're not there. And so they were aware, and that the motion could, maybe they weren't sure, they could say that to you, but there was ever going to be a question. I put down the motion on behalf of the people that asked me to put it down. I just didn't think of it myself. And I put the motion to a vote, and that was the result of it. It was passed by the members of Kerry County Council, and it is no longer I. It is we, the members, have it passed, and have written to the Minister for his consideration. And you know, I'm hearing today that Minister Varadkar is not entertaining it, but I'm asking them to give it further consideration because, you know, the people that have asked for it, community groups and otherwise, will judge him on the actions that he takes from here on.
Danny, I suppose one suggestion that was thrown out there, kind of, I suppose, building on the proposal from Kerry County Council, was that maybe there could be some sort of I don't know, I call it a drunk hour, whereby between the hours of 12:30 and 1:30, that is when the people who had consumed pints would drive home. So then we'll say the people who haven't drunk will keep off the roads at those in between those times. Do you think maybe there'd be scope for something like that?
I'm not. I didn't grasp what you said, or what you said there.
Well, basically between, we'll say, 12:30 and 1:30 at night, that between, in that 60-minute gap, the people who had been drinking could drive home at those hours, so that people would know that on the roads there'd be people who are drink driving.
Well, you know what I'd say to you is, many of these people wouldn't be waiting for closing time, because some of them would be moving on, and some of them would like to be out in the morning again, and maybe when, if they had to go outside of that jurisdiction, they couldn't, have been out late the night before, because you can be breathalyzed in the morning as well. So they wouldn't be out late anyway, and I don't know if that would work at all. Now, someone made a suggestion, would they put something up in their vehicle indicating that that they were driving on the permit or something like that? Maybe some suggestions like that.
Flashing light or something that indicates, they've been drinking.
The way Ale is up on the windscreen for learner drivers, maybe you could put permit up the same way, and in bigger writing.
Like a pint glass or something in the back window, so people would know that person's been drinking.
That's making it, a bit, I don't know, making a bit of a joke out of it, but certainly, the powers that be could come up with rules and regulations, and, what I'd be saying is that the person would come into the Garda station, he'd ask for the permit, didn't that he'd get, that the permit would be handed out to him there and then, but that he'd be, that he'd make his application, the Garda and the sergeant or whoever would vet his application over a number of days and even a number of weeks, and if everything was right, and and to a certain limit, and within from the nearest pub or the nearest village to his house only, and if he exceeded those limits or that went beyond where the permit was for, that he'd face the full rigours of the law, whether it was a man or a woman. If they went outside of what their permit was good for, that they'd have to face the full rigours of the law.
I suppose my final question for you, Danny, is with this whole proposal getting so much media attention around the world, do you ever feel that maybe yourself and the people at Kerry are kind of being made to look like fools now for suggesting such a proposal? And I suppose by extension of the fact that, as I said, it's been in media around the world, that you're making Ireland kind of look like the stereotypical alcoholics.
Well, that from the level of support that I've got right around the country, and from all the foreign, we'll say, stations outside the country that have spoken to me, that's not how it appears. And first of all, I have to say that I love the people of Kerry. I love Kerry. I work for all the people of Kerry and Kerry County Council, and I wouldn't do anything to hurt them. We appreciate our tourists and the tourists that come into the county. And if I thought that I was hurting anyone in the county, or that my proposal would hurt anyone, I mean, there are others, sending out, alarm signals saying that, that this is, that it isn't safe to come to Kerry anymore. You could get run over. That's not fair, or that's not right, because the roads that I'm talking about are rural, small roads in isolated, remote places, and for people who have no other social outlet would use to come to their pub, to have contact with their neighbours, with the people of the parish, and maybe sing and join in an odd sing song, or play a game of cards, or join in the talking about the issues of the day, the price of cattle in the map. They have lost all that, and the only way to cure loneliness, is contact.
Yeah.
And contact has been robbed from these people. That is the fact.
Okay, well,
by central government over a number of years, and people in rural or in urban areas don't understand it, because they don't see or don't know the roads of the people that I'm talking about.
Danny, you're not thinking of running for a national election in the next run, are you? Maybe bring this attention to the Dáil?
Well, no, I have a representative there. We have a representative there, and he's doing a good job, and we let him at that. And I'll continue working for the people on Kerry County Council and on all the people that, you know, that vote for me and don't even vote for me. I will continue to work for them. I'm proud of the Killarney electoral area. I'm proud to be representing the Killarney electoral area on Kerry County Council, and indeed I work for people far beyond, as my son does as well, and Michael in the national arena.
Okay, thanks a million for joining us, Danny, this evening. It was good talking to you, and we'll keep an eye on how things develop with regards to this permit as well. Thanks a million for talking to us here at FeckTV.com. Okay.